And now TSPN presents Open Mic Friday with Mike Spence and Butter.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Spence, and this is an easy show to remember. It's Open Mic Friday. I almost got it wrong, right?
Yeah.
Open Mic Friday. How could I forget that? With Butter. And of course, she's here in the house. She's in her air-conditioned studio back there, just waiting to come on during the break. And I'm with a special guest today, Scott Oneto.
Hi, Mike.
How are you, Scott?
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
You wouldn't know that this was the news desk, but
Yeah.
it's Open Mic Friday, casual Friday afternoon. We just have all these miscellaneous toys and wheels and things to have.
Sounds like a good way to spend a Friday.
A little more fun than normally during the news breaks. But we're going to talk today with Scott. He is the farm advisor for the University of California. You have another title as well.
Yes, also the director. So the administrative piece of my job is the director for Cooperative Extension.
I wanted to let you say it, make
Yeah.
sure we got that right, because that's very important. And you work with the University of California with this agricultural and natural resource position in terms of care and preservation of a number of different species and plants and all different types of subjects. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how extensive that is?
So my job is an educator and a researcher, and so basically that means if people have problems, we try to help solve those problems, and it could be in the area of agriculture, natural resources, nutrition. We also do 4-H in the Master Gardener program. So we are really the local link between the community and what its resources and needs are to the University of California.
Well, they're lucky to have a master gardener like yourself
into
that position. What
Yeah.
a natural fit for you. How long have you been doing that?
I've been with Extension for about 15 years.
Oh, wow, quite a while.
Yeah, I feel like
Quite a
I'm
while.
starting to hit my stride.
Yeah, well, you should be at 15 years.
Exactly.
Well, obviously, you get a lot of calls about oaks, and so you've brought a couple of different species, samples to look at. And why don't you describe some of the different?
So oaks. I would say being an educator, I love oaks. I mean, we live in oak country, I would say. We've got almost 25 species of oaks in California, and about 6 or 7 that are really common here in Amador County. This time of the year, we get a lot of calls about oaks. Oaks are browning out, they've got these funky growths on them, all sorts of different issues. They may see bleeding sap coming out of the trunks, and so people are concerned, as they should be. We're really excited about offering a series of courses coming up here in the next month to talk about oaks, and I brought a few of the samples here today just to kind of give you a flavor of what kind of oaks we have. This one here is one called Valley Oak. Sometimes people call it water oak because it has a tendency to grow mostly in the valley where, around the delta where it gets a little bit more water, but very characteristic by having these very lobed leaves, where we call very
Let's turn
deeply.
that a little toward my camera there. I'll hold it and you can kind of describe
So
it.
these have very deeply lobed leaves here, can be very majestic large trees up to 60, 80 feet tall, and can live for 300-400 years old. And I'll move on to the next one.
Well, these galls.
Yeah,
too,
we got to point out the galls.
yeah,
People are probably going,
Now, these are not part of the oak. These are another byproduct of insects.
Sometimes people call these oak apples or oak galls, but these are caused by a little tiny wasp about the size of a fruit fly. And so people usually don't notice them. They're not, wasp that you would think of like a yellow jacket or a meat bee. These are just little tiny wasps that have a very close relationship with oak trees. There's over 100 different types of wasps that live on oaks, and this one in particular causes these round balls. And what happens is the little wasps actually lay their eggs inside the tissue of the plant, and the plant, the oak tree, responds by actually making this gall. And so the little wasp lives in there, goes through its whole life cycle in there, eating that little tissue, and then eventually exits out of a little hole and then continues its life cycle.
That's amazing. Now, the oak tree supports, I was reading somewhere in your literature, over 300 species.
Over 300 species of different animals, amphibians, insects that actually live in and around oaks. And so, really the oak trees are kind of this habitat in themselves, and where they have a whole environment of things living in and around them.
More species of insects and animals than any other plant.
Any other
tree or
plant, exactly. Yeah,
oak
so
tree
pretty
has
fascinating.
more. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
and that's
that is
really
just
why
cool.
we, because people love oaks and they want to build their homes around oaks, they want to preserve oaks, and really, there's a lot going on around oaks, and so really, we try to emphasize all the different parameters and different facets of oaks about really how to live and preserve them in the right sense, so you're not disturbing that kind of ecosystem.
Right. Well, I have a property where, I get a lot of those volunteers. They're just popping up all over.
Yeah.
And I try to nurture every one of them. And my daughter's out there. We put a little rocks, we try to get a little water going. Now, I know they only like watering, an additional water in the first 2 or 3 years.
Exactly.
And then they like to
yeah,
dry,
and that's one of the main problems we see is, they do need some water to get established, but I think people have a tendency to overwater sometimes.
You don't want to overwater.
Yeah, there's actually a native fungus that lives in the soil called armillaria is the scientific name. It's called oak root fungus, and it thrives in moist, warm conditions. And typically, if you think about, our natural environment, oaks, have hot, dry summers, and so there's not a whole lot of available moisture in the summer, and so typically the fungus is kind of dormant in the summer, but when we start adding water to that sort of system, it creates a problem. And so we, when we see people with, landscaping, intensive watering landscaping underneath their oaks, or unfortunately, I hate to say turf or lawns up around oaks, that's when we really start running into a lot of problems.
Right. Well, that's important to know. Now, I have to put my glasses on to see this one. You had one that now the leaves are different. The lobes are different on this.
Exactly.
leaf.
So we'll so this one we'll do next here. This
Yeah.
is a very, very common oak around the area. This is called the blue oak, and the blue oak is probably the dominant oak species here in Amador County. We live in the blue oak woodland, and so these, the name, it derives kind of from the shading of the color of the leaves. You can see they're kind of a bluish gray color.
Much smaller leaf, too.
Much smaller leaves, and then not nearly as lobed as the last one, the valley oak. You can see it still has some lobed leaves, but not nearly as deeply lobed as the other one. And I'm not sure if the viewers can actually see these
they'll never be able to see that. These look
Probably won't
like
be able to see the detail.
little sea anemones or something.
Yeah, look like little sea urchins, and
yeah.
again, these are very similar to that
urchins.
the gall that I just pointed out with those big oak galls. These are the same sort of thing. Another different insect, another wasp, caused that little urchin, that little sea urchin.
A different type of wasp.
Different type of wasp, yeah. So it also laid its egg in the leaf, and the plant responded by making that actual little pink
Yeah, they're little pink
growth.
spiked. They do look like little sea urchins. And then I saw one that you pointed out that looked like a little volcano, another different shape.
Yeah. So there is, again, over 100 of these different insects that cause these types of growth formations. And all of them look
sorts of
different.
things.
It's just very, very fascinating. There's another one here called the interior live oak, and it grows in the interior parts of California. This is what we call an evergreen oak, so this keeps its leaves year-round, where those other oaks that I just described actually drop their leaves. And so this is another very, very common oak.
Oh, this is the one I have on my property. I have a lot of major large oaks, and we're going to need to go to break, but this is the spiky-leaved one that looks like hollyberry.
Exactly, kind of looks like a hollyberry.
It's more of a bush than a tree. And it springs up in different spots and completely different. Like I say, it stays all year long. But we're going to go to break right now. We're going to come back with Scott Oneto, farm advisor, and incredible expert on all of our different oak trees. So please stay tuned, and we'll be back. We have the butter break coming up, so please stay with us.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.